Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. Until recently, I had never heard of Nick Fuentes. Fuentes, I think his name is. Starts with an F. I never heard of this Nick guy until he started getting circulated around the media because of his praise of Hitler. And now he's against Vivek Ramaswamy and is determined to make war against him. Apparently, he's hung around Kanye West and was invited to Mar-a-Lago, where Trump had to distance himself from him for his comments on favoring Nazis. Nazis were socialists. It's baffling that this is a topic that would make some sort of headway. But here's what's going on. And a kid like this would not be propped up by the media the way he is. He's all over YouTube now. He's everywhere. And normally YouTube would shut someone like him down because of his comments. Obviously, what is considered traditionally racist. I'm not going to play that card. I think it's all the mechanisms of controlled speech are difficult, problematic. But the concern you have to have is why people like, all at the same time, people like him are getting promoted. Tucker Carlson's taking a hard anti-Jewish stance. Of course, this Nick kid is too. Nick Fuentes is making a lot of hay by discussing bringing down the Jewish mob, as they say it. And then it's pitted Mark Levin against Tucker Carlson against this Nick Fuentes. And now you've got what the media thinks is a split in the MAGA party. That here going in the midterms, this is a play. It's a game plan that it's another Hail Mary on their part to try and break up the coalition. Because they know the poll numbers, and I've been saying, everybody's been hoping that Trump's going to lose House seats, and I know that there's people like the Steve Bannons of the world are out there cautioning everybody, don't get comfortable. You got to go get districting seats. You can't rest on your laurels. You got to go out attack. And now you have this faction. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene essentially leaving the party. Got Tucker Carlson going against Mark Levin, and I think Tucker's comments on Islam are crazy ridiculous, being way past journalistic integrity on support of a very aggressive religion that, taken by itself, might be insightful to everlasting considerations from a regional point of view, but the hostilities, you can't look at aggressive fundamentalist Islam and the amount of terrorist attacks that are attached to them, the random shootings and the acts of violence that have occurred, not just with 9/11, but elsewhere. You can't ignore those things and then say the Jews are more dangerous. So what you have is this purposeful division to split the MAGA vote, because I think people would consider Tucker Carlson a MAGA guy. I think people would otherwise consider Nick Fuentes as being a MAGA guy. I think he was a supporter, even though he's a libertarian and he supported Ted Cruz back in the day. He's a young guy that's learned his way in the world, and all of a sudden he's been catapulted, and he's being fed to be a disruptor. I think in other kinds of scenarios, the media would have squashed him like a bug. If he said something favorable about Hitler, he wouldn't have been on Piers Morgan. He wouldn't have been on Tucker Carlson's podcast. He wouldn't be promoted in a way that YouTube would have shut him down in a fraction of a second. But yet he's being advocated and promoted as the anti-Vivek Ramaswamy, which is the anti-Trump pick, and a way to start eroding away Trump's presence in the midterms. And so if everybody's out there talking about the Jewish mob and Tucker Carlson's defection against Mark Levin and anti-Israel, what you're seeing, a defense mechanism of these forces that have been building this erosion in the background. And you're seeing some of these characters that have been associated with Trump now being promoted as rebels to overthrow the whole thing. And if you're Nick Fuentes and you've got a gripe against Ben Shapiro and you want to become the next Ben Shapiro because you got alienated from the conservative media, well, a lot of reasons you got alienated from conservative media is because you said things that were harmful and dangerous and bad, disingenuous, and even attaching yourself to Hitler was a great guy because he didn't like the Jews. Nobody in their right mind should even... First of all, Hitler was a socialist. I explained in detail in other videos that I've done, in other articles. I've written many millions and millions of words on the topic. It's enough of an audience to make it matter. I'm generally not putting it out there for the general public, although they have access to it. I write for specific policymakers who want to have a sounding board to bounce ideas off of. So I've explained the idea of the power and the reason Jewish people want to control so much of politics and so much of statehood and presence to create the state of Israel to begin with after World War II. I've explained it. It's all... The fundamental issue you need to understand is rebuilding of the temple for the third time so the Jewish people can get back into their sacrifice cycle. And they even have the red heifers picked to do it. They're ready to go. And the problem is Islam sitting on that spot where they want to build the third temple. So you have this perpetual battle. There's no amount of peace in the Middle East that can take place to kind of make everybody happy and do some prisoner swaps. There just isn't anything that you can do to bring peace to that issue because you have two ideologies that are essentially opposed to each other. Islam acts like the jealous, cast-aside son that did not inherit what he thought he was going to from his father. Islam identifies with Ishmael, and the Jewish people identify with Isaac. And they both claim sacrifices at that spot, that same rock, Dome of the Rock spot, and the stone that's under it where the Holy of Holies was during the previous two temples that the Jewish people built. And they, of course, want to build with the third one, the Holy of Holies, back on that spot because they believe it's relevant to their cause. And that's pretty much a summary of the Jewish issue in the world. And to call them the Jewish mafia that owns all entertainment, owns all publishing, owns all the politicians, and that they're going to... lately, the kid, Vic, and I don't mean to disparage him as a kid. He's just a young guy. He's 28 years old. And he wants to be the next Ben Shapiro or the next Charlie Kirk or the next Glenn Beck. And then he's making a play for it, and he's getting propped up because he's feeding the narrative that's anti-Trump. Even though he's been a Trump supporter, it's kind of like a lot of people who come and go from Trump's orbit. Some people get burnt. Some people think they can get close to him and leverage him in their direction. Omaroso comes to mind. There's a whole bunch of people who have been close to Trump for a while that fallen away and didn't make it. And this young guy is one of them. And there's a reason why he's out there arguing in favor of Adolf Hitler. And no one in the right mind would say that's a great thing. And no one would say, well, it's great because it brings down the Jewish mafia. Hitler had the right idea. I could go back in history and say that the protocols of Zion were the book that was written anonymously that provoked Hitler into World War II. And World War II was an occult war. When you really peel back the layers, it was an occult war that provoked people like Hitler to be suspicious of the Jewish people. And again, it was all about this background noise of the Jewish people gaining power again in the world, rebuilding the temple, bringing Yahweh into the living house as a living God. There's a whole lot of factions in the world that either want to see that happen or don't want to see that happen. So it's going to be a bloody battle. It's going to go on, and you're going to have people who are going to be opportunistic and try to capitalize on it. And that's what Nick Fuentes is clearly trying to do. And I otherwise wouldn't talk about him, but I happen to love Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't see any of this as a threat to him running for governor. I don't see this Casey, the car guy. You know, they have media followings that are, you know, good for, you know, a small sector of audience participation. I mean, social media wise, they have some followings, but for running for governor and thinking that you're going to be able to overthrow the Trump-picked nominee and Vivek Ramaswamy, and that, you know, you're going to pick on him because he's Indian, because he has a Hindu religion, and that America First is going to be reclassified into this racist movement that that the left heavily criticized in previous years. Any of these things, even calling Vivek Ramaswamy an Indian, would have been a criteria to be removed from YouTube or from general media presence. Would never got on Piers Morgan. Wouldn't make the time of day in any kind of news outlet. Newspapers would run away from them, and now all of a sudden they're embracing them. So these guys have been kind of suckered into taking the bait, carrying the water of an anti-Jewish movement because it's an impact against Islam. Islam is the carrier aggression against Christianity, American family in the United States, the real America First movement, which is just deal with the American borders. And there's all kinds of people from all kinds of places that have come here, but we're going to deal with our sovereignty. We're going to be America First for reasons of not adhering to globalism. And to then take Vivek Ramaswamy and say he's a globalist is just preposterous. And I know Vivek Ramaswamy personally enough to know that he had an arc. I think he's always been a good person. He's a great business guy. He's been very successful. And he's a clear front runner for the governor race. And his success story is one that makes him valid for that position. The criticisms out there, I think, only help him. I don't see anything Casey, the car guy, is going to be able to do as a competing person in the primary for the governor is going to do to knock Vivek Ramaswamy out of the way. And the debate's good, and I'm happy to hear it happen. And again, it's a free speech issue, but why are these guys getting a free pass to be able to attempt to take down Vivek Ramaswamy and ultimately Trump and Trump's picks in Ohio in general? And if it gets them more media, of course, people like Nick Fuentes is going to be encouraged to continue to do it. But under normal circumstances in any other period in history except for this midterm, again, I pay attention to as much as I can. I probably have heard of this kid at some point in time as a young up and coming MAGA podcaster. I had never heard his name. That's why I still have a hard time with the saying it. I'm not faking it for emphasis. The F throws me off. I have a hard time saying his last name. It doesn't catch with me. But until this last couple weeks, someone like him would have been squashed like a bug and not given a media platform anywhere, and YouTube would have taken him off. I think a few years ago when Elon Musk rebought Twitter, Vivek Ramaswamy even fought to put the kid back on. He was taken off, he was deplatformed, and to give him a voice again, along with Alex Jones. And I like Alex Jones, and he's usually more right. His delivery is often wrong, but some of these guys that go extremist with their platform cases, the way they frame them, they get themselves in trouble. And Alex Jones certainly has over the years, and it's not an accident that Nick Fuentes is not seeing the kind of scrutiny you normally would. And do I agree with that scrutiny? I think free speech should be free speech, and I don't think the censorship should have ever been a part of the story. But you can tell now that it's not. It's actually being encouraged, in this whole Nazi talk and the anti-Jew talk is being promoted in mainstream circles and not ridiculed at all. That it's the actual hope is that this torpedo will split the MAGA movement up and ruin the midterms for Republicans. And so now you have these voices that have fallen off the ladder, just like Michael Cohen did, or like I said, Omarosa, or any number of people that were there and then weren't there. I think the overall effect's going to be that, just like that porn star that was trying to bring Trump down, or any of the lawsuits that were trying to bring Trump down, or any of the jail cases that were trying to bring Trump down. They're hoping that these fallen stars of the MAGA movement, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, and others, are going to erode the momentum going into the midterms, and I just don't see that happening. So when I do get to see Vivek Ramaswamy, this is what I'll tell him, because I'm sure he's I think being a human being, you get hurt by the kind of things people are saying about you, the kind of things that Nick's been saying about his Indian heritage. I think it's the hate that's been coming out of Casey, the car guy. A lot of this stuff is just maliciously brutal. And if that's how you want to play it, that's fine. But it's surprising that it's being allowed to go on, and that these guys would actually do it, because it kind of goes against human nature. I mean, why would you want to be nasty to somebody just because they were born someplace else, or born of parents that were from another place, and here they're trying to make the American dream here, and Vivek Ramaswamy certainly has, but to make fun of him not wearing his shoes at some of these events, and his skin color, his heritage, his religion, I think is bizarre. But that's how the leftist media feels, truly, and these guys, these fall-offs are being encouraged to do this, and they're not being deplatformed as they would in the past, and they're being blown upon with great success to hopefully destroy the MAGA movement. So my advice to Vivek Ramaswamy and Trump and everybody else who's on this: do what got you there. Don't let these guys change the way that you behave. Don't feel like you've got to go and be overly nice to appeal to these guys. They're screaming loudly to try and get some leverage, and a media culture is trying to create a rebellion to split the party. They're Trojan horses, whether they mean to or not, to try and catch everybody sleeping during the midterms. This game plan is still the game plan. You got to get all the seats you can get. Keep the House. Make sure you keep positive votes in the Senate. Republican all. Win some of these governorships. Vivek Ramaswamy only has to be connected to Trump. You know, he was running for president. They were in the primary together. And I think what you want to see is the Trump White House in the Ohio State House. And that's how you sell it. It's all going to come down in economic standards, and it's an asset. That Vivek Ramaswamy is worth $1.5 billion. When I first started talking to him, I didn't know it sounds like a lot of money. I think he was 700 million of 800 million before he started Strive Management. You know, when you play a game at that level, you tend to get a lot of, just like in the game of Monopoly. Once you start getting Boardwalk and Park Place and some of the expensive real estate that when people land on, they have to give you half their money or most of their money, or you bankrupt them doing it, you tend to gain a lot. And I think it says a lot about him strategically that he's making a lot of money. He's wealthy, but he also, as a young guy, wants to commit himself to public service, and that's great. That that says a lot about him, actually, a lot that you can trust. And I've had the opportunity to shake his hand and talk to him in private about all these things. And I can vouch for the guy that he's a solid character, and he's fully has my support, and will continue. And all he has to do to counter these guys is be bigger than they are, because he is. But don't get rocked on your heels, feeling like the MAGA movement's rebelling against you. We've seen this many times before. And again, I'm using Omarosa as the example. Trump's been through all these people that have fallen away from him and called him every name in the book, and it hasn't hurt Trump at all over the years. And none of this stuff is going to hurt Vivek Ramaswamy. And the best way to engage in them is to really kind of clobber them over the head with their personal success. I mean, what's Tucker Carlson? I said he would be more popular if he left the Fox show. And he has been until now. He's disenfranchised everybody, and I think he's going to split everybody away. This stance he's taken, this anti-Israel stance, isn't going to help him a whole lot, because he's all over the map talking about Christians, talking about UFOs, and UFOs being demonic entities, and now he's against the Jewish mob, but he was fired from Fox, and he's an outcast now, and he's on his own trajectory of learning. I think even when he was doing the fill-in spots for Bill O'Reilly, he was still, as a journalist, learning how things worked in the world. I think he's still doing that. And Nick Fuentes is definitely one of those people that's going to be learning a lot, and he's getting a platform now to make a lot of noise and get some footholds into what the radical left hopes they can split the party of Republicans down, split MAGA down the middle, and erode away Trump's impact and attack a Trump candidate in Ohio, hoping that they can do enough to cause damage to the midterms. But the way to win is to beat them with what made them good to begin with. And with Vivek Ramaswamy, very successful person, very nice person, but you're going to have to be aggressive and attack people like Casey, the car guy, on his basic premise. What have these guys done in their life? What have they done to be successful? When they're criticizing Vivek Ramaswamy for having a success arc that started on Wall Street and started at Harvard and started with being able to talk in media real well. Vivek Ramaswamy has a natural gift to speak in public, and he's used it. And if you take some of your wealth and pay to get on some of these shows and to build your brand up, and why not? So be it. There's a lot of people, and I've referred to myself in that a lot. I don't do any kind of, I do my stuff and I put it out there, and who sees it sees it. But there's a lot of gadgets out there that allow you to pay for success, and you can increase your numbers on your platform with money, and get more visualization out there if you're willing to pay for it. When you have the money, why not do it if that's what you're going for? And if you want to run for president, or you want to run for governor, so be it. But Casey, the car guy's whole premise is vote for me because I'm against Vivek Ramaswamy, which is essentially saying I'm against the Trump nominated person for governor. So I'm anti-MAGA. And when Nick Fuentes says, I think they are going to try and kill me, the Jewish mob wants Trump to broker peace in the Middle East so they can gain power and control over the world, and they're going to try and kill me in 2026. And he's doing that, makes him sound more prominent. It's a similar kind of thing that Glenn Beck, and although some of those death threats are certainly true, they tend to make the public more sympathetic to them. Glenn Beck went through that when he went after Soros, and Soros was had people harassing Glenn Beck all over New York. Who in this business doesn't get death threats and have people threaten to kill him? But are you going to sit around and be a crybaby about it and plead for the public so it doesn't happen, or try to build your brand on the flimsy occurrence that it actually does happen? Or are you going to just deal with it as a man and just deal with whatever impediment comes your way as far as suggestions of violence? There's a proper way to deal with that, and there's an improper way. And right now, the media is advocating for Nick Fuentes to be a thorn in the side of the MAGA movement, to erode Trump's picks, starting with Vivek Ramaswamy, and to attack his base foundation. And I think that can make Vivek much stronger as a candidate. He's not going to cruise to a victory through the primaries. He's going to win anyway. But I think a lot of these arguments only make Vivek better. And the way to deal with them is to go on the attack. What have any of these people done besides do some social media? Vivek Ramaswamy's made his own social media podcast himself. If he did it himself, he'd be pretty popular doing it. I do it as a recreation, as a commentator on news to share with people who are interested in it. But to make a living off of it, I would never think to, because then you bring elements of inauthenticity to the situation that makes you not a good representative of the truth. And even when you're being propped up or not deplatformed, because the hope is Tucker Carlson, the car guy, Casey, and Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, and all these other people that have fallen off the MAGA train, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that it will have an impact on the midterms. The way to beat it is to not let it happen and go on the attack. Make the attackers look like fools for what they are, for their lack of success in life. Beat them over the head with your own success. Trump certainly did that in his own life. Vivek Ramaswamy can do the same, and it won't be a big deal. Vivek will win over Casey and the rest of the challengers easily and make fools out of all of them, but you got to stay on your game plan. And now we know what the attack vector is. We know the left is advocating for these rebels, and the hope is that they can use this very disgraceful language, but colorful language, to get a foothold where every other method of Hail Mary that the political left has attempted to do, they're hoping that it works this one last time. And I see it blowing up in everybody's face who's participated in it. And it will even, I think, help make the midterms stronger towards Trump than it otherwise was projected to. But everybody's just got to stay on point, stay on the game plan, and use success to beat down failure at every turn. And everything will come out in a very favorable way. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day, and see you later.